The first thing people noticed wasn't the chandelier. It was the pause. A tiny break in the usual rhythm where laughter was supposed to spill freely, where champagne was supposed to sparkle on cue, where the rich were supposed to feel untouchable. Nia Carter stepped onto the marble threshold with the calm of someone who'd negotiated storms in glass-walled boardrooms and never once needed permission to breathe. No entourage. No designer logos screaming for attention. Just a tailored black blazer, sharp lines, clean fit. A single watch on her wrist, quiet, heavy, deliberate. Above the entrance, a banner in gold script stretched across velvet drapes. The Hartwell Children's Initiative Annual Gala. Inside, the ballroom moved like a living advertisement, gowns, tuxedos, diamond-studded smiles. Flashbulbs popped. A string quartet played something expensive and forgettable. Nia didn't come looking for applause. She came looking for outcomes. She approached the host's stand and held out her invitation, digital, with a clean QR code and her name typed in crisp black text. The young attendant took it, scanned it once, then glanced up at Nia's face like the screen had made a claim her brain didn't want to accept. A beat. Then another. The attendant's smile returned, polite, practiced, and slightly strained. "I'm so sorry," she said, voice honeyed. "I'm not finding you on the guest list." Nia didn't blink. "Try searching by last name." The attendant tapped quickly. Keys clicked. Her eyes flicked to the security guard standing nearby, a silent request for backup. Nia watched that glance the way a CEO watches a meeting turn, not with panic, only with clarity. Behind her, a few guests drifted closer, pretending they weren't watching. Pretending curiosity was harmless when it was dressed in silk. Then a voice cut through the entrance, sharp, loud, and proud of itself. Asterisk asterisk excuse me, who let her in, asterisk asterisk. The words cracked across the air like a slap. Heads turned. Smiles froze in place. A tall man in a tuxedo stepped forward, silver hair, confident posture, the kind of face that assumed agreement before anyone spoke. His gaze landed on Nia as if she were a problem someone should have cleaned up already. "This is a private event," he announced, projecting for an audience. "Not a public lobby." A ripple of laughter followed, thin, nervous, eager to join the safer side of the moment. Not everyone laughed. But enough did. Enough to make the humiliation shared. The attendant cleared her throat, leaning into procedure like it could protect her. "Ma'am, if you could step to the side? We just need to verify." The guard moved closer. Not touching her, not yet. But close enough that the message pressed into the space between them. "You don't belong here." Nia inhaled once. Exhaled once. She didn't plead. She didn't apologize for existing. In her mind, a memory rose, an old lesson spoken quietly, a lifetime ago. Never let them turn your dignity into a negotiation. A woman in a pearl-white gown stepped forward, eyes bright with the casual cruelty of someone who'd never paid for her own consequences. "Maybe she's lost," the woman said, laughing lightly. "Or maybe she's staff." The word staff landed like a joke that wanted blood. More laughter. A few guests looked away, as if discomfort could be solved by refusing to witness it. Nia's voice was calm when she finally spoke. "I'm here for the Hartwell Initiative." The tuxedoed man scoffed. "And I'm here for a penthouse view. Wanting something doesn't get you past the door." The guard's hand hovered near Nia's elbow now, firm and rehearsed. "Ma'am," he said, professional but unmoving, "I'm going to need you to come with me." Nia didn't step back. She didn't step forward. She simply turned her head slightly, just enough for the movement to feel like control. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Nia. Nia looked at the guard first. Not with anger, with understanding. You're doing what you were told, she said quietly. I get that. Then her eyes shifted to the tuxedoed man, the pearl gown woman, and the small crowd feeding on the scene like it was entertainment they'd paid for. But I need you to understand something too. The attendant blinked. Ma'am? Nia lifted her phone, not as a threat, not as a show. Just a tool. The way power often is. I'm not going to argue, Nia said. Her voice never rose, yet it carried. I'm not going to perform humiliation so anyone here can feel important. The tuxedoed man leaned in, enjoying himself. Then leave. Nia's expression didn't harden. It cooled. Call your gala chair, she said. Right now. The attendant hesitated, caught between protocol and the creeping fear that protocol might be wrong. The pearl-gown woman laughed again, louder than before, trying to drown the tension she could feel turning the air heavy. Oh my God, she said. She wants to speak to the manager. Classic. Nia didn't look at her. The attendant's screen refreshed, an alert banner sliding across the top after one last search. Principal partner, do not delay check-in. The attendant's face drained of color. Her fingers tightened around the device like it suddenly weighed too much. From inside the ballroom, beyond the velvet ropes and glittering tables, someone important stood up fast, too fast for someone who was relaxed. A man in a tailored suit turned sharply, eyes locking on the entrance as if he'd just seen a fire start. He began moving toward Nia with urgency that didn't match the party. Nia stood perfectly still, phone resting in her palm, thumb calm above the screen like a judge above a verdict. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. Because the room was about to learn a lesson it avoided at all costs. Power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just shows up quietly and lets you embarrass yourself first. The man in the tailored suit was still cutting through the crowd, moving too fast, too focused, when the tuxedoed donor decided he didn't like the way the room was shifting. He smiled wider, the kind of smile people wore right before they called something policy and meant power. Hold on, he said, raising one hand as if he owned the air. Let's not make a scene. This is a children's charity event. We have standards. His voice carried just far enough for nearby tables to turn and listen. Nia stood where she was, still as polished stone. The attendant kept staring at her screen like it might suddenly apologize. The guard remained close, body angled to guide Nia away, not because he hated her, because he'd been trained to remove the friction before it could embarrass the wealthy. The tuxedoed man nodded toward the attendant. What's the issue? The attendant swallowed. She's not on the list. At least, she wasn't. Wasn't, he repeated, pouncing. Exactly. Thank you. He turned back to Nia, dropping his voice into something almost kind. Ma'am, tonight is invitation only. There are other fundraisers in the city. Plenty of wonderful events. This one just happens to be curated. Curated. A softer word for gatekeeping. The pearl-gown woman stepped in again, sipping her drink like she'd paid admission to this moment. Curated is generous, she said with a laugh. This is the Hartwell Gala. People here donate more than some people make in a lifetime. She let her eyes drag over Nia's blazer, her shoes, her watch, hunting for permission to dismiss her.
Maybe she got the address confused, the woman added.
There's usually a community dinner down the street.
A couple of people laughed. Not loudly. Not proudly. But they laughed.
That was the part that always stung the most.
Not the insult. The audience. Nia didn't respond to the pearl gown. She didn't feed the performance.
She looked at the tuxedoed man, calm, measured.
You're with the event?
He puffed his chest slightly.
I'm on the host committee. My family's been on that committee for 20 years. He leaned closer, dropping his tone as if offering her mercy. I'm going to do you a favor. Walk away quietly and no one will have to.
A voice behind him cut in, sharper.
No one will have to what?
A woman in a sleek black dress approached, hair pinned, headset tucked behind one ear, a clipboard held like a shield. She had the exhausted eyes of an event director who'd been putting out fires since noon.
The tuxedoed man brightened, grateful for an ally. Dana, he said. Perfect timing. We've got an unregistered attendee trying to get into the main ballroom. Dana looked at Nia.
Her face barely changed, but her eyes did something subtle, like she recognized a storm front and didn't want to be standing under it.
Sir, Dana said carefully, this is the main entrance check-in. It's not the place to.
Dana, the tuxedoed man snapped, still smiling for the crowd.
This is exactly the place. We can't have random people wandering into donor seating. Random people. He said it like he was protecting children. Like his prejudice was philanthropy.
Dana glanced at the attendance screen and saw the alert.
Her jaw tightened.
The pearl-gowned woman leaned forward, enjoying the tension. Tell her to go around back, she said, bright as sugar.
If she's staff, she'll know the service entrance.
The word landed again, staff, as if it was dirt you could flick off your sleeve. The guard shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting.
He didn't like the direction this was going. Not because he suddenly became brave, because high-profile incidents were messy. Messy meant paperwork. Messy meant supervisors. Messy meant someone else might get blamed.
Dana took a slow breath and chose her words with the precision of someone defusing a bomb.
Ma'am, she said to Nia, voice quieter now, would you mind stepping to the side for one moment? Just so I can confirm. Nia's eyes stayed steady. Confirm what? Dana's mouth opened, then closed. The truth sat there, sharp and undeniable. Confirm that a black woman in a simple blazer could belong in a room full of old money. Confirm that the assumptions everyone was making weren't based on evidence. Only comfort.
The tuxedoed man stepped slightly between Dana and Nia, reclaiming control like it was instinct.
Look, he said, raising his voice again, we're not doing this. The Hartwell initiative is about community. But we have to keep it secure. We've had incidents before. Incidents. The oldest excuse in the book. A man at a nearby table muttered, they're right. You can't just walk into these things. A woman replied, it's probably a misunderstanding. Probably. Always probably. Nia turned her head just enough to glance at the crowd. Faces like masks. Eyes that loved watching, hated participating. Then she looked back at Dana. Who's the gala chair tonight? Nia asked. Dana paused. Excuse me?
The gala chair, Nia repeated, calm as a contract.
Name. Now.
The tuxedoed man laughed, relieved she'd finally said something he could mock.
"Oh, this is unbelievable," he said. "You're going to interrogate us now? Listen." Nia didn't raise her voice. She didn't need volume. She had something else.
"I'm not here to debate my right to exist in a room," she said, low and clear. "I'm here because I was scheduled to be here." The attendant's fingers hovered over the device, unsure whether to call a supervisor or pretend she didn't see the alert at all. Dana's eyes flicked toward the ballroom again, toward the man in the tailored suit approaching fast. And for the first time, the tuxedoed man noticed it too.
The urgency.
The way the approaching man wasn't smiling.
The way he wasn't looking at the guests. He was looking straight at the entrance. Straight at Nia.
The tuxedoed man's confident grin faltered just a fraction. "What is this?" he murmured, mostly to himself.
Nia didn't answer. She simply unlocked her phone.
A single contact sat pinned at the top of her screen, first name only, no title, the kind of listing you used when you never had to explain who someone was.
She tapped it once.
And as the call began to ring, the pearl-gowned woman's laughter finally died in her throat. Because the room was starting to realize something, all at once.
This wasn't a lost woman at the wrong party. This was a mistake they were making in public. The phone rang once. Twice. Nia didn't look at the crowd while it rang. She didn't need to.
She could feel them anyway, like heat at the back of her neck, like 1,000 tiny opinions trying to decide what she was allowed to be. Dana's clipboard trembled slightly in her grip, not from fear of Nia, fear of getting caught on the wrong side of whatever this was. The tuxedoed man recovered quickly, forcing a laugh that sounded too bright.
"Oh, here we go," he said, loud enough for nearby tables. "She's calling someone."
The pearl-gowned woman lifted her brows with fake sympathy.
"Maybe her ride." "That's thoughtful."
A few people chuckled again, those small, safe laughs that let people pretend cruelty was just comedy.
The guard's stance shifted. His hand eased away from Nia's elbow.
Not because he'd become noble, because something in the energy had changed, and his instincts told him he'd rather not be the one touching her when it did.
Nia's call connected.
Her voice stayed quiet, unhurried. "Marcus," she said.
"I'm at the entrance." A pause. Her eyes didn't dart. Her face didn't tighten.
She listened like she'd listened to market reports and merger proposals, calm, clinical, and completely in control.
"Yeah," she continued. "They're trying to turn me away at the door."
She turned slightly, just enough to see the man in the tailored suit closing the last few feet.
He wasn't running. He wasn't frantic.
But the speed of his walk didn't match the event.
That mismatch told the truth.
He reached the edge of the gathering and stopped, taking in the scene with a single sweep, the guard too close, the host stand frozen, the tuxedoed man performing power, the pearl gown smirking like this was her favorite sport. Then his eyes landed on Nia. The breath left his lungs like someone had punched it out. "Nia," he said, soft at first, then sharper, like he needed to confirm reality.
"Ms. Carter?"
The tuxedoed man turned, confused.
"Marcus, thank God you're here. We've got a situation. Some woman is claiming she belongs." Marcus didn't look at him. Not even a flicker.
His attention stayed locked on Nia as if nothing else mattered. "Ma'am," Marcus said, and the word ma'am in his mouth sounded like respect, not politeness.
"I'm so sorry. I'm so..."
Nia lifted one finger, small and precise. Not to me, she said. She ended the call and slipped the phone back into her blazer like it was nothing. Marcus swallowed, eyes darting to the attendance screen, then to Dana, then to the tuxedoed man. His expression tightened as the full picture assembled. Dana spoke quickly, voice professional but strained. Marcus, I tried to. There was confusion at check-in and... The tuxedoed man stepped forward, still smiling, still convinced his status would shield him. Confusion is right, he said. We can't let people just walk into donor areas. We have to protect the integrity of the gala. Marcus finally looked at him. It wasn't anger. It was recognition. Like he'd just identified the source of an infection. Protect the integrity? Marcus repeated, voice low. The tuxedoed man nodded, encouraged. Exactly. It's a high-profile event. We have families here, major donors, press. Nia's eyes remained on Marcus. Who is this? She asked, quietly. Marcus's face went stiff. He didn't want to answer in public. That alone was an answer. Dana interjected, trying to keep the moment from exploding. He's on the host committee. He's been helping with. With what? Nia asked, still quiet, still steady. With the door? Her tone wasn't sarcastic. It was surgical. The pearl-gowned woman leaned in, trying to reclaim the room. Marcus, darling, she said, smiling. It's fine. We were just handling it. People crash these things all the time. Marcus didn't acknowledge her either. That was when the crowd began to shift. Not physically. Emotionally. A few smiles faded. A few heads tilted. People started recalculating. You could almost hear the mental math, asterisk who is she? Why does he look like that? Why isn't he laughing, asterisk? Nia turned her gaze outward for the first time, scanning the guests like a boardroom. She saw the ones who laughed too quickly. She saw the ones who looked away. She saw the ones who didn't laugh at all but didn't intervene either. And she noted them the way leaders note patterns, without drama, without rage, without forgetting. Nia returned her attention to Marcus. Is the gala chair inside? She asked. Marcus nodded once. Yes. Chair is inside. And the foundation president is at table 12. Press is inside. Good, Nia said. The tuxedoed man's smile faltered. Wait, why are we involving leadership? This is just a check-in problem. Nia's eyes slid to him for the first time. Not hostile. Not heated. Just cold enough to make his skin understand it had overstepped. This isn't a check-in problem, she said. This is a governance problem. The word hit the air and didn't bounce. Governance. A term that belonged to people who sat above the committee, above the donors, above the theater. Marcus's mouth parted slightly, like he wanted to smooth it over, like he wanted to beg her to keep it quiet. But Nia didn't come to keep their secrets safe. She came to fund a mission. And she refused to fund disrespect. Dana's voice softened. Miss Carter, can we move to a private area? We can fix this. Nia looked at Dana, then really looked at her. I'm not interested in a private fix, Nia said. Not after a public insult. The pearl-gowned woman scoffed, but it came out thin. Oh please, she said. No one insulted you. Nia didn't even glance at her. She addressed Marcus again, as if the pearl gown was part of the decor.
Bring them, Nia said. The gala chair. The foundation president. Whoever signs tonight's commitments. Marcus nodded, already moving. Yes, ma'am. The tuxedoed man's confidence began to leak. He straightened his jacket like fabric could restore control.
Hold on, he said, voice tightening.
Who are you, exactly? Nia paused. Just long enough for the question to echo and turn into its own humiliation.
Then she answered, still quiet.
Someone you should have treated with basic human decency, she said. And someone who doesn't negotiate for it.
Marcus stepped away toward the ballroom doors, speaking urgently into his headset. Dana remained frozen, caught between a career built on making donors comfortable and the reality that comfort had just exposed its ugliest rules. The crowd watched, suddenly sober. Not because they'd found empathy. Because they'd found fear. And fear, in rooms like this, always arrived right before the truth did. The music inside kept playing. Violins, steady and bright, like the gala was determined to pretend nothing was happening. But the foyer had changed. It felt colder, even though the doors were still open and warm air spilled out with perfume and champagne. Marcus moved with purpose, headset pressed to his ear. I need the gala chair to the entrance. Now. And the foundation president. This is urgent. Dana hovered near the host stand, eyes darting between Nia and the crowd gathering in a half-circle that looked polite but behaved like a courtroom. The tuxedoed man tried to reclaim control by talking louder. You're turning this into a spectacle, he said. For what? Attention? This is a charity. Nia didn't answer him. She kept her gaze on Marcus, then on Dana. Who's responsible for guest list management? She asked. Dana blinked. That's us, the events team. We use a third-party check-in system. Good, Nia said. Then you can pull the check-in logs. I want the timestamp on when my QR code was scanned. I want the name of the staff member who flagged it. And I want the name of the person who decided security needed to intervene. Dana's throat bobbed. Ms. Carter, we can do this privately. Nia's voice stayed level. No. It wasn't loud. It was final. The pearl-gowned woman rolled her eyes like she was bored. You're acting like this is some kind of civil rights documentary. Nia glanced at her once briefly, not emotionally, like a CEO acknowledging a pointless agenda item. If the shoe fits, Nia said, then looked away. The pearl gown's smile twitched. She hadn't expected her to respond at all. The tuxedoed man took that as a win. See, he said. She's provoking. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. Marcus returned, jaw tight, headset still on. Gala chair is on the way. Foundation president is coming up from table 12. The attendant, still clutching the check-in device, looked like she might cry. Nia softened her focus toward the young woman, just slightly. What's your name? Nia asked. The attendant swallowed. Leah. Leah, Nia said, calm and direct. Did you decide I didn't belong here? Or did you follow someone else's lead? Leah's eyes flicked toward the tuxedoed man for half a second, too quick to be polite, too obvious to be accidental. That small glance landed harder than any insult. Dana saw it too. Her face tightened, and she stepped closer to Leah as if to shield her from what she'd been pulled into. The tuxedoed man stiffened. Are you implying I Nia cut him off without raising her voice. "I'm implying nothing," she said.
"I'm asking for facts."
Then she looked at the guard.
"And you," she said. "What's your name?" The guard hesitated, then answered. "Derek."
"Derek," Nia said, respectful, measured.
"Who instructed you to remove me?"
Derek shifted his weight.
"I was asked to assist with an unverified guest." "By who?" Nia asked. Derek's eyes slid toward Dana, then the tuxedoed man. Dana spoke fast. "Miss Carter, we can handle staff questions later." "No," Nia said again. Same quiet tone. Same finality. The crowd had grown. A few phones were out now, held low, pretending they weren't recording, but recording anyway. A photographer near the ballroom doors angled his lens as if he was just capturing candid atmosphere. Dana noticed and stepped forward. "No filming in the foyer," she snapped, but it came out thin. "You couldn't unring attention once it started." Nia didn't look at the phones. She looked past them, toward the ballroom. "Tonight's mission is children," she said. "That's why I'm not walking away. Not when the people leading this event think dignity is optional." The tuxedoed man scoffed. "Dignity? You're the one holding up the entrance." Nia turned to him, calm as glass. "You held it up first," she said. "When you decided I was random. When you made my presence a public joke." He opened his mouth, then closed it, realizing too late that every sentence he'd offered sounded uglier the second time. A commotion rose behind the velvet ropes. A woman approached fast, wearing a floor-length navy gown and a diamond necklace that caught the light like a warning. She had the smile of someone trained to charm donors and the eyes of someone who hated surprises. "Dana," she called, voice sweet but sharp. "What's going on?" Dana exhaled with relief and dread at the same time. "Elaine, thank you. There's been a misunderstanding at check-in." Elaine's gaze landed on Nia. Her smile held for half a second, then wavered, as if her brain was scrambling to match the face to the spreadsheet she'd memorized for weeks. "Good evening," Elaine said, tone polished. "I'm Elaine Hartwell. Gala chair." The name carried weight. The kind people stood straighter for. Nia nodded once. "Ms. Hartwell." Elaine's eyes flicked to Marcus, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Marcus," Elaine said quietly, "why are we doing this here?" Marcus didn't answer her question. He answered Nia's presence. "Because she asked for you," he said. "And because we can't," he stopped himself, then tried again. "Because this isn't a small matter." Elaine turned back to Nia, smoothing her expression. "Ma'am," she said, lowering her voice as if privacy could still be purchased. "If you'll come with me, we can resolve this discreetly." Nia didn't move. "Discreet is what you offer when you want silence," Nia said. "I'm not here for silence." Elaine's smile tightened. "Then what are you here for?" Nia's answer came clean and practical. "I'm here for accountability," she said. "Names. Process. A public correction. An assurance that your staff will never be coached to treat someone like me as a threat because it's convenient." Elaine blinked, caught between optics and ego. Behind her, a man in a tux approached, older, heavier presence, the kind of figure donors deferred to even without introductions. His expression wasn't curious. It was worried. Dana whispered, "That's President Langford." Langford stepped into the foyer and stopped the moment he saw Nia. His face drained of whatever confidence he'd been wearing. Miss Carter, he said, voice dropping. You're here.
The tuxedoed committee man stiffened. The pearl-gowned woman's posture faltered, like her spine suddenly forgot how to stand tall.
Elaine's eyes widened a fraction. Nia met Langford's gaze and nodded once.
Now that everyone who signs things is present, she said evenly, we can begin. For a second, nobody spoke. Not because they suddenly found respect. Because they recognized risk. President Langford stood in the foyer like a man who just realized the ground beneath his gala was rented, leased from people he didn't control. Miss Carter, he repeated, softer this time. We didn't know you were arriving through the main entrance.
Nia's expression didn't change.
That's interesting, she said evenly. Because the invitation says main entrance.
She glanced at Elaine Hartwell, the gala chair, then back to Langford. And because being at the main entrance shouldn't be dangerous for anyone. Elaine's smile held, but it was thinner now, pulled tight over panic.
Of course. Absolutely. This is unacceptable. She turned toward Dana, voice suddenly managerial.
Why wasn't I informed immediately? Dana's eyes flashed, hurt, defensive. I tried to escalate. Marcus did.
There was. Elaine cut her off with a polite hand.
Not here.
Not here meant, not in front of donors. Not in front of phones. Not in front of the truth, Nia watched the exchange like she'd watched executives do it 1,000 times, shift blame, soften optics, hide the mechanics. The tuxedoed committee man stepped forward again, desperate to keep his position.
President Langford, Elaine, this is being blown out of proportion, he said quickly. We were protecting the event. She wasn't on the list at first. We can't just. Langford turned his head.
The movement was small, but it stopped the man's voice like a choke.
What's your name? Langford asked.
The tuxedoed man blinked.
Excuse me? Your name, Langford repeated.
For the record. The phrase for the record changed the temperature.
It wasn't gala language. It was governance language. The man forced a laugh. I'm Charles Whitman. Host committee. Langford didn't nod. Didn't smile.
Just looked at him like he'd become a liability in real time. Nia's voice cut in, calm as a blade. Mr. Whitman, she said, you announced I was random. You suggested I should leave quietly. And your guest implied I should use the service entrance. The pearl-gowned woman flinched as if the spotlight had finally swung her way.
I didn't, she started. Nia held up one hand. Not aggressive. Just enough to halt noise. I'm not asking for denials, Nia said. I'm asking for accountability.
Elaine's eyes darted toward the cluster of guests watching, toward the phones, toward the ballroom doors where music still played like ignorance on a loop.
Miss Carter, Elaine said, lowering her voice to something that tried to sound intimate. Let's step into the donor lounge. We can speak privately, and we'll make this right. Nia didn't move.
Private is where reputations get protected, Nia said.
Public is where behavior gets corrected. Dana swallowed. Marcus shifted beside Elaine, his face tight. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the wall.
Langford cleared his throat, voice taking on the tone of a man trying to stop a flood with a memo. Miss Carter, he said, please accept my apologies. This does not reflect our values.
Nia met his eyes.
Values are what you do under pressure, she said.
Not what you print on the program.
There was a beat of silence so clean it felt expensive.
Langford's gaze flicked to Marcus. "Is this the same Ms. Carter?" Marcus nodded once, jaw clenched. "Yes." Elaine's posture stiffened. "Marcus, what do you mean, the same?" Marcus hesitated.
In a room like this, the truth was always expensive to say out loud. But the truth was already there.
In the way Langford's voice dropped.
In the way Elaine stopped smiling. In the way Dana's face went pale, realizing what she'd been standing next to without knowing.
Marcus exhaled through his nose. "Elaine," he said quietly, "this is Nia Carter. Carter Group." The name landed like a dropped glass.
A few people in the crowd reacted instantly, tiny gasps, sudden stillness, a donor's eyes widening like they just recognized a headline. The pearl-gowned woman's lips parted, but no sound came out. Charles Whitman's face shifted, confusion, then irritation, then fear trying to hide behind pride.
"Carter Group?" Elaine repeated, as if her mouth didn't want to form the words. Langford spoke before Marcus could say more, voice controlled but unmistakably shaken. "Ms. Carter is the principal partner for the Strategic Children's Health Initiative," he said. "The multi-year commitment." He didn't say the number yet. He didn't need to. Everyone in that circle knew the rumors. The whispers. The slides in the board packet no one outside the inner circle was supposed to mention. Nia watched them calculate. Not her wealth. Her leverage. Elaine's eyes searched Nia's face like she was trying to find an off switch. "Ms. Carter," Elaine said carefully, of course we know who you are. This is a misunderstanding in check-in operations." Nia's gaze stayed steady.
"You didn't know who I was," she said.
"And that's the point." Elaine's smile trembled, then steadied into something practiced.
"We can fix this," she promised.
"We'll issue a statement."
"We'll."
Nia's tone didn't change, but the room heard the shift anyway.
"Not a statement," she said.
"A correction." Langford swallowed. "What do you want, Ms. Carter?"
Nia looked at Dana, then Leah, then Derek the guard, people who would be punished first if leadership chose the lazy route.
"I want the truth documented," Nia said. "I want Mr. Whitman removed from any role involving this organization. And I want training that isn't performative, real policy, real enforcement."
Charles Whitman scoffed, trying one last time to stand tall. "You can't just come in here and demand."
Langford cut him off instantly.
"Yes, she can," Langford said.
The room went still again.
Because now the hierarchy was visible. And Charles Whitman, who'd been loudest at the door, was suddenly just a man in a tuxedo, realizing the door wasn't his.
Elaine's voice came out thin. "Ms. Carter, please. Let's not do this here." Nia held Elaine's gaze.
"This happened here," Nia said. "So we're finishing it here."
Langford nodded once, like a man accepting terms he couldn't negotiate.
"Understood," he said. And somewhere behind the ballroom doors, the orchestra kept playing. But in the foyer, the party was over. President Langford's phone buzzed once.
He didn't look at it. He didn't need to.
The real notification was standing in front of him, calm, black, unshaken, while his entire event leadership tried to pretend they hadn't just revealed their real culture at the front door. Elaine Hartwell adjusted her posture, smoothing her gown like fabric could smooth the situation.
"Miss Carter," she said, voice carefully lowered, "I'd like to personally apologize for the experience you've had tonight. This is not who we are." Nia's eyes didn't soften.
Then you should be relieved, she said, because tonight is exactly how you get to prove it. Charles Whitman shifted, jaw tight, still fighting the instinct to dominate. This is ridiculous. We're here for children. We're here for charity. Turning this into a trial? Nia finished, quiet. No. She glanced toward the small crowd. Phones were still angled. People were still pretending they weren't recording. This is a report, she said. And I'm the one who's been asked to fund the solution. Langford's throat moved. Ms. Carter, we're grateful for your partnership. We want to make this right. Nia nodded once, small, controlled. Good, she said. Because I'm not a guest you can escort away when it gets uncomfortable. She turned slightly, facing Elaine and Langford together, the way she would face a board and a CEO during a crisis call. Let's clarify something, Nia said. There's been a lot of talk about lists and access and security. Her voice stayed even, but it held the room the way gravity holds people in their seats. The only reason you're standing here right now, she continued, is because my team agreed to structure a strategic partnership with this initiative. Elaine's expression tightened at the word structured. That wasn't Gala language. That was deal language. Nia reached into her blazer, not for drama, not for a reveal prop, just business. She pulled out a slim folder, the kind people carried when they didn't need to show off because the contents did the talking. She didn't open it yet. She just held it. Carter Group, she said, is the lead on the healthcare expansion you've been marketing all year. Langford nodded quickly. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Nia looked at him. And the commitment you've been celebrating at this gala, what you've been calling a transformational pledge, is a contract. A donor in the crowd whispered to someone next to him, and the whisper spread like smoke. Elaine tried again to shift toward privacy. Ms. Carter, if we could just step. Nia didn't let her finish. It's not a pledge, she said. It's a $2.5 billion partnership, structured over multiple years, with performance triggers and compliance clauses. This time the number landed. Not like a rumor. Like a gavel. A few heads snapped up. A few mouths parted. People who had laughed minutes earlier suddenly looked as if laughter might cost them. Charles Whitman's face drained. He started, then stopped, his confidence failing mid-syllable. Nia continued, still calm. The agreement includes donor confidence provisions, she said. Reputational harm. Discriminatory conduct. Failure to enforce policy. She turned her head slightly toward Dana, Leah, and Derek, not accusing them, not sacrificing them. This isn't about one attendant or one guard, Nia said. This is about who feels authorized to humiliate a human being at the door and call it standards. Her eyes returned to Charles. Mr. Whitman, she said, you didn't ask who I was. You didn't ask if I had a contact inside. You didn't ask for verification with dignity. She paused. You decided. Charles forced a laugh, thin and shaking. I didn't know who you were. How could I? That defense only works, Nia said, if decency is reserved for people you recognize. Silence. The pearl-gowned woman's hands tightened around her glass. Her cheeks flushed. Her eyes darted to Elaine, to Langford, seeking an ally, a rescue, anything. Elaine's lips parted, but nothing came out on the first try. When she spoke, it was careful, clipped. Ms. Carter, of course we value inclusivity. We've invested in branding, Nia said. Elaine flinched, as if the word had struck her. Nia's tone remained controlled, but her words started to narrow into something sharper. "Your people treated me like a threat," she said. "And then they tried to make the correction quiet so your donors could stay comfortable." Langford's voice broke in, urgent. "What do you want from us? Tonight. Right now." Nia looked at him for a long second. Then she did something that felt almost gentle, because it was fair. "I want you to look at the cameras," she said. Dana's eyes widened. "Ms. Carter." "No," Nia said softly. "This is how you stop it from happening again." Elaine's gaze flicked toward the crowd, toward the phones. Langford hesitated, then nodded slightly, accepting the reality that the foyer had become the real stage. Nia spoke, voice still low but clear enough to carry. "Say it plainly," she instructed. "What happened at this entrance was wrong. It was biased. And it will have consequences." Elaine's jaw clenched. "Ms. Carter." Nia didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "The deal is not a trophy," she said. "It's a responsibility. And the first performance trigger is trust." Langford swallowed hard and turned toward the onlookers, eyes strained. "Everyone," he began, voice stiff. There was an unacceptable interaction at the entrance. "Ms. Carter was treated improperly. That is on us." Elaine followed, reluctant, but cornered by truth. "We apologize," Elaine said, the words tasting like metal. "And we will address it immediately." Nia listened without expression. Then she glanced down at her phone again, not as a threat. As a reminder. Because the same device that could call leadership could also call legal, call finance, call a board, call a halt. She lifted her eyes to Langford one more time. "Now," she said, "tell me why your host committee member felt entitled to police the door." Langford's face tightened, and he looked toward Charles Whitman. For the first time that night, the man who had shouted "Who let her in" looked like someone realizing his voice had just cost him everything. And Nia, still calm, still standing where they tried to move her, held the room the way she held her company. With quiet authority. With receipts. With no interest in mercy that came packaged as silence. President Langford looked at Charles Whitman the way a man looks at a cracked pillar, trying to decide whether to brace it or remove it before the whole structure came down. "Charles," Langford said, voice controlled, "step back." Whitman's face tightened. "This is absurd. I'm on the host committee. I've brought donors to this initiative for years. And tonight," Nia said, quiet, "you brought bias to the entrance." Whitman snapped his head toward her. "I didn't know who you were." Nia didn't react. "That's the problem," she said. "You treated me like I had to be someone important to deserve respect." Elaine Hartwell's eyes flicked toward the growing crowd. The phones. The whispering. The way the energy had shifted from Galaglam to corporate crisis. "Ms. Carter," Elaine said, forcing steadiness, "we've apologized. The president has apologized. We can address committee conduct internally. We don't need to." "To what?" Nia asked. Elaine swallowed. "To jeopardize the mission." Nia's expression didn't change, but her words landed with weight. "The mission is already jeopardized," she said. "Not by me. By a system that thinks humiliation is an acceptable filter." Dana stood near the host stand, pale and stiff, trying to keep her staff from collapsing. Leah's eyes were wet. Derek stared at the floor, jaw clenched, as if he could rewind the last 20 minutes. Nia looked at them. I'm not here to burn down your staff, she said. I'm here to stop leadership from using them as shields.
Langford's shoulders sank slightly. He knew exactly what she meant. Miss Carter, he said, tell me what you need. Tonight. Nia nodded once. Document this incident, she said. Immediately. I want the check-in logs, the names of decision-makers, and a written account from Dana, Leah, and Derek, not to punish them, but to record what they were instructed to do. Dana's head lifted. Ms. Carter, Truth protects you, Nia said. Silence doesn't. Elaine stepped in again, voice tight. We can do all of that. We will. But the partnership.
Nia turned her head slightly, eyes calm.
The partnership has conditions, she said. And you just violated them in your front doorway. Elaine's face drained. We didn't violate. Nia didn't raise her voice. She opened the folder she'd been holding and slid out a single sheet, clean, printed, no drama. She didn't wave it at the crowd. She held it at chest level, angled toward Langford. Section 9, Nia said. Conduct and reputational harm. Langford didn't take the paper at first. His eyes scanned it like he'd seen it before and hoped he'd never need to. This is a gala, Elaine whispered, almost pleading. Not a courtroom. Nia looked at her. It's a public-facing fundraiser tied to a multi-year contract, she said. Which means it's both. Whitman forced a laugh, but it came out thin. You're not canceling anything. That's not how this works. Nia turned to him slowly. This is exactly how it works, she said. You just haven't been on the other end of it. She slid the sheet back into the folder and closed it with a quiet snap. Then she pulled out her phone again. Not theatrically. Like a person turning a key. Marcus stepped closer, voice low. Miss Carter, if you'd like, we can move to the donor lounge. We can. No, Nia said. Not after what they did at the door. Langford's voice tightened. Miss Carter, please. Nia looked at him, eyes steady. I'll fund children, she said. I won't fund disrespect. Her thumb hovered over a contact. This time, the label wasn't a first name. It was a department. General Counsel. She tapped. The line rang once. Twice. Then picked up. Nia spoke in the same calm tone she'd used all night. Hi, Kendra, she said. It's Nia. I need you to initiate a hold on the Hartwell partnership disbursement schedule. Effective immediately. Langford flinched as if the words had physical force. Elaine's mouth opened. No. Nia continued, composed, precise. Yes. Put a freeze on the next tranche. Flag it under reputational harm and discriminatory conduct provisions. I'll send you a written summary and names. Also loop in compliance and PR. She listened for a beat. Correct, she said. Not a termination yet. A hold. Until conditions are met. The crowd behind them shifted. A donor whispered, did she just? Someone else murmured, that's the whole initiative. Nia ended the call and slipped the phone back into her pocket like she'd just ordered coffee. Elaine's face was rigid with shock. You can't do this tonight. Nia's gaze didn't move. I just did, she said. Langford stepped forward, voice strained. Miss Carter, please. The children's hospital expansion depends on.
Then you should have protected the partnership, Nia replied.
Not just the optics. Dana's eyes flicked between Langford and Nia, realizing the difference between charity theater and actual governance. Whitman took a step forward, anger flashing, desperate. "This is extortion," he snapped. "You're using money to punish people." Nia's voice stayed level.
"I'm using accountability to protect people," she said. "The money was always conditional. You just didn't think the conditions applied to you."
Elaine swallowed hard. "What conditions?" Nia answered without hesitation. "Whitman is removed from the host committee tonight," she said. "Not next week. Tonight."
"You announce it publicly, and you stop calling this a misunderstanding."
She looked at Langford.
"You will put in writing that your security and check-in protocols cannot be used to target people based on appearance," she continued. "And you will schedule third-party training, real training, with enforcement measures.
Not a slideshow."
Then she looked at Elaine. "And you will apologize to my face without asking me to keep it quiet," Nia said.
"Because you weren't quiet when you let it happen." Elaine's eyes glistened with anger and fear.
She tried to speak, but her voice didn't come out on the first attempt.
Langford turned toward Whitman, his face hardening into something final.
"Charles," Langford said, "you're done."
Whitman's jaw dropped. "You can't."
"Yes," Langford said, louder now, for the crowd to hear.
"I can." Effective immediately.
The foyer went silent again, clean, brutal, undeniable. And Nia, still standing at the entrance where they tried to erase her, didn't celebrate. She simply watched the people in power finally do the one thing they avoided most. Tell the truth out loud. Once Langford said the words *Charles, you're done*, the room didn't erupt.
It recoiled. Old money didn't like sudden changes in the hierarchy.
It didn't like seeing one of its own corrected in public. The donors didn't know whether to clap, whisper, or pretend they hadn't heard it at all.
So they did what people always did when truth got inconvenient. They went quiet.
Charles Whitman stood there like someone had pulled the stage from under him. His face cycled through disbelief, anger, and finally a thin, desperate embarrassment. "This is insane," he muttered.
"Elaine, tell him this is insane." Elaine Hartwell didn't look at him. Her gaze stayed locked on Nia, because Elaine understood the brutal math now. The Gala chair didn't control the moment anymore. Nia did. And Nia wasn't interested in revenge.
She was interested in repair. Langford straightened, the role of Foundation president settling into his shoulders like a weight he couldn't shrug off. "Miss Carter," he said, "tell us the conditions."
"We'll meet them." Nia nodded once, not impressed, not softened.
"Good," she said.
"Then we're going to do it properly."
She looked at Dana first.
"Dana, you're going to write a timeline," Nia said. "From the moment I approached check-in to the moment Marcus called you. Include who said what, and who instructed security. No editorial. Just facts." Dana swallowed, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Nia turned to Leah, the attendant.
"Leah, you're going to do the same," she said.
"And Derek." Derek's jaw tightened. "Yes."
Langford started to interject, probably to reassure staff, probably to cushion leadership.
Nia didn't let him.
"Not to punish them," she said, voice calm but firm. "To stop you from using them as the sacrifice when this hits sunlight." The crowd shifted. A few donors looked uncomfortable. "Good."
Discomfort was the beginning of learning. Nia turned back to Langford and Elaine. Here's condition 1, she said. You make a public correction tonight. Elaine's lips parted. We already apologized. Nia's gaze stayed steady. You apologized like it was a customer service issue, Nia said. This is bias. Say the word. Elaine flinched. Langford exhaled. We can do that. Condition 2, Nia continued. Mr. Whitman's removal is documented in writing, effective immediately. Not stepping away. Not taking time off. Removal. Langford nodded. Understood. Whitman's head snapped up. You're destroying my reputation. Nia glanced at him briefly. You built it, she said. Tonight, you showed the room what it's made of. Whitman's mouth opened, then shut again. He had no angle left. Nia continued, unshaken. Condition 3, she said. Third-party training for every frontline person, security, check-in, event staff, and every committee member. Not a slideshow. Not a 1-hour webinar with a certificate. Elaine's voice tightened. That's expensive. Nia's expression didn't change. So is discrimination, she said. A low murmur ran through the crowd. Nia pointed toward the phones without looking at them. And since people are recording, she added, your third-party training provider will be named. You will publish completion rates. You will publish the enforcement policy. Dana's eyes widened. That was real. That was measurable. That was the difference between performative and structural. Langford nodded slowly. We can commit to that. Condition 4, Nia said, you create a complaint pathway that doesn't disappear into a private inbox. An ombuds process. Independent review. Clear consequences. Timelines. Elaine's face tightened, like she was thinking about donors and headlines and the weight of oversight. Nia didn't give her time to negotiate it away. And condition 5, Nia said, voice steady, I want the mission protected. Langford blinked. That's what we want too. Nia turned slightly, addressing the crowd now not as an audience, but as a room full of people who needed to understand why she wasn't just walking away. The hold I placed is a hold, she said, clear and controlled. Not a tantrum. Not a threat. It's a safeguard. She looked at Langford again. You want the children's hospital expansion? Nia asked. Then your organization has to be safe for the people it claims to serve. Elaine's shoulders lowered a fraction, the first sign of surrender that wasn't just optics. Miss Carter, Elaine said, voice tight, what else? Nia paused, not for drama, but because she was choosing the part that mattered most. Redirect, she said. Elaine frowned. Redirect what? Nia's voice softened slightly, but only slightly. If this gala was going to celebrate big numbers, she said, then let's stop pretending the numbers are for ego. She turned to Langford. When the hold is lifted, she said, a portion of the next tranche will be earmarked for community clinics in the zip codes you claim to care about. The ones your donors drive past on the way here. A donor near the back stiffened, offended. Good. Nia kept going. And a scholarship pipeline, she added. For Black and brown students going into pediatric medicine and hospital administration. Not a photo op. A funded, tracked pipeline. Langford nodded, swallowing hard. We can structure that. Nia held his gaze. You will, she said. Elaine took a shaky breath. And the public correction? Nia's tone returned to steel. Now, she said. Elaine looked like she wanted to argue. Like she wanted to bargain for a quieter corner. But the quiet corner was what had protected them long enough. Langford turned toward the crowd and the phones. Everyone, he said, louder now, voice heavy, we need your attention. The donors shifted. The quartet inside kept playing, unaware the real performance had moved to the foyer. Langford continued, each word careful. What happened at our entrance tonight was biased, he said. It was wrong. And it will have consequences. Elaine stepped forward beside him, and for the first time, her face didn't carry charm. It carried discomfort. Which meant it might carry truth. We failed Miss Carter, Elaine said. We failed our own standards. And we are correcting it publicly, effective immediately. Nia listened, arms relaxed at her sides. No smile. No victory. Just resolve. Because justice, to her, was never about humiliating someone back. It was about making sure the next person didn't have to survive the same door. After the public correction, the room didn't turn warm again. It turned cautious. That was the honest version of respect in spaces like this, people suddenly measuring their words, their laughter, their proximity, like they'd just learned the floor had weight limits. Phones slipped back into pockets, but the tension stayed. It clung to the velvet ropes and marble like a stain nobody wanted to claim. Langford stepped closer to Nia, voice lowered. Miss Carter, he said, will issue the removal letter tonight. Elaine will sign it. I'll sign it. We'll circulate it to the board before midnight. Nia nodded once. Include the reason. Langford hesitated. We can say. Don't, Nia said, calm. Don't sanitize it into differences in vision. Don't wrap it in a ribbon. Say what happened. Elaine's eyes flicked toward the ballroom, where the gala continued as if the orchestra could drown out accountability. We have donors in there, Elaine murmured, not as an excuse, more as a reflex. Press. Sponsors. Nia met her gaze. Then you should have trained your committee, she said. Because donors aren't just writing checks. They're learning what kind of world they're buying. Elaine swallowed hard and nodded, the first real nod she'd given all night. Dana approached with a small stack of printed pages, check-in logs and incident notes already being pulled. Her hands shook, but her voice held. Miss Carter, she said, we're starting the timeline now. Leah is writing hers. Derek too. Nia's attention softened slightly. Good, she said. And Dana, when this hits the board, you make sure the truth doesn't stop at staff level. Dana nodded, eyes bright with fear and something else, relief, maybe, that someone powerful had finally said out loud what she'd been forced to swallow in silence for years. Leah stepped forward, wiping at her face quickly. I'm sorry, she whispered. Nia looked at her steadily. I know, she said. But I need you to understand something. Leah nodded, bracing. You're not the only one who has ever been asked to enforce someone else's assumptions, Nia said. But next time, ask one question before you call security. Leah swallowed. What question? Nia didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. What if I'm wrong, she said. Derek the guard shifted forward, his posture less rigid now, less performative. Ma'am, he said, carefully, I didn't mean. I know, Nia replied. And that's why we're fixing the system, not just blaming a person. Langford watched her, visibly absorbing it. The difference between punishment and reform. Between a headline and an outcome.
The pearl-gowned woman, who had found her voice earlier so easily, stood near the edge of the crowd now like she didn't know where to put her hands. She cleared her throat. "Miss Carter," she said, brittle, "I think this has gone far enough. We all said things. It's been addressed." Nia turned her head slowly, giving her just enough attention to make the moment feel like consequences, not drama. "What's your name?" Nia asked. The woman hesitated. "Sloane." Nia nodded once. "Sloane." Sloane tried to lift her chin.
"My family has supported this initiative for years." Nia's eyes didn't change.
"Then you had years to learn how to speak to people," Nia said.
"And you chose humiliation instead."
Sloane's cheeks flushed.
"I was joking."
Nia's reply was quiet, almost gentle, because it was true. "Jokes don't need victims," she said. Sloane's mouth opened again, then closed. Her gaze dropped.
In rooms like this, shame wasn't common unless it was expensive. Langford stepped between them with a controlled breath.
"Miss Carter," he said, "the hold, what do we need to do to lift it?"
Nia didn't answer immediately.
She looked through the glass doors into the ballroom, where donors laughed again now, relieved the discomfort had shifted away from their tables. She looked at the kids' photos on the program posters, smiles used as marketing, stories often flattened into fundraising slogans.
Then she looked back at Langford and Elaine. "Deliverables," she said. "Not promises." She ticked them off, precise as a contract. Removal letter. Public notice. Third-party provider engaged and scheduled. Ombuds process drafted with board oversight.
And a written amendment that earmarks funding to community clinics and the scholarship pipeline we discussed.
Elaine nodded quickly. "We'll do it."
Nia held her gaze.
"Not we'll. You will." Elaine's eyes flickered, ego fighting reality, then settled.
"We will," she repeated, firmer.
Langford exhaled slowly. "And if we do all of that?" Nia nodded once.
"The hold lifts," she said.
"And the work continues." A beat passed.
Then Langford looked toward the ballroom doors.
"Will you come inside?" he asked, voice careful. "We'd like to acknowledge you properly." Nia's answer came without hesitation.
"No," she said.
Elaine blinked. "Ms. Carter." "I'm not here to be celebrated," Nia said. "I'm here to make sure the children aren't funded by disrespect."
Marcus returned with a slim envelope already printed, already moving faster than most apologies ever moved.
"Miss Carter," he said quietly, "Langford's assistant drafted the removal letter. Elaine can sign now."
Elaine took the envelope with hands that didn't fully stop shaking.
She looked at the page, then at Nia.
"Miss Carter," she said, voice low, stripped of performance, "I am sorry."
Nia watched her for a long second.
Not to punish her. To measure whether the apology had weight.
Finally, Nia nodded once. "Make it true," she said. Elaine signed. Langford signed.
And just like that, the loudest man at the door, Charles Whitman, became a footnote with a timestamp. Whitman stood rigid, face tight, realizing too late that power wasn't volume.
It was structure. It was paper. It was who could move money with one call.
Nia slipped her phone back into her pocket and adjusted her blazer, calm as if she were leaving a meeting, not a gala crisis. She looked at Dana one last time. "Protect your staff," she said.
"And protect the mission." Dana nodded, voice barely a whisper. "Thank you." Nia didn't smile. She didn't need to.
She walked out through the same main entrance where they tried to remove her, heels steady on marble, posture straight, dignity untouched. Outside, the night air was cooler, quieter, honest. Her driver opened the car door. As Nia slid into the back seat, the ballroom behind her glowed like a lantern, beautiful from the outside, but lit by rules that needed rewriting. She glanced once at the banner before the door closed. The Hartwell Children's Initiative. And in the reflection of the tinted glass, her expression remained calm. Because justice didn't need to shout. It just needed someone with the nerve and the leverage to make the world follow through.